Okay, I think we're getting there. I want to speak about a very unusual occurrence, which is when the date of the day is actually found in the parasha of that week. And that's not very common. So this week's parasha, we got a double. We got Matot Maseh. And in Maseh, it mentions the date of Rosh Chodesh Av, which of course is this Shabbos. Now, Rosh Chodesh Av on Shabbat is not very common. Um, it's average about once in 10 years or so. So it happened this year, and it's slated to happen again in 2045. Do the maths, Hashem should preserve us all in good health, and have the recurrence of the occurrence again, so that Rosh Chodesh Av will be on Shabbat when the first Seder is on a Saturday night, and of course that's not very common. Happened this year, and then there's a 20-year gap, then it happens again, I think twice thereafter in short succession, and then it's gone for another 20 years. So by that time, let's not do the maths, but that puts us somewhere in 2070 or whatever. So that looks like beyond the realm of the achievable, for yeah, with Mashiach. Please God, but then they might do the calendar in a different way. What's the context? The context is that it mentions the yahrzeit of Aharon HaKohen, which is something very unusual because there is no other yahrzeit of anybody recorded in the Torah. It doesn't mention any dates. The dates are known to us, so we know when Aaron's brother Moshe died. We work it out. We work it out because um, they calculate how long the manna fell after he died, and they work it out backwards, and you know. So we know when he died, we know when he was born because we know it was the same day. There are other dates that are known to us via an oral tradition. Only one date of death is actually mentioned in Torah explicitly, and that's the death of Aaron. And one has to wonder why it's relevant. And also, one has to look at the context of where it is mentioned. And I should be able to do this. Oh, I found it before. Start share. There we are. Okay. So here's a picture of Aharon. And of course, Aaron is always depicted with the breastplate, which is on his heart. And I'm going to come back to why that's the case. The portion of Maseh, that's the second of this doubleheader. The second portion, Maseh, actually lists the journeys of the Jewish people, starting with, and it just gives their point of departure, and the point of you know, destination. They left from Ramses, they camped in Sukkot, they left from Sukkot, they camped in Etam, which was at the edge of the wilderness, and then from there they went. I'm skipping just because they're 42 stations, so we're not going to list them all. But they went from Yam Suf to Midbasin, from Basin to Dovka, from Dovka to Alush, and so forth. It lists all the stations, all the travels, and in the middle it kind of digresses and tells us about the death of Aaron. They travel from Kadesh, camped in Hor Hahar, which is situated at the edge of the land of Edom, and there is Aaron's death recorded, described. Aaron the high priest, well, it doesn't say that, it says just Aaron HaKohen, not Gadol, ascended this Mount Hor Hahar at Hashem's instruction, died there in the 40th year. In the 40th year after Israel had left the land of Egypt, first day of the fifth month. So Chodesh HaChamishi B'Echad HaChodesh, which is 40 years down the line, and where's my mouse? Go. The first day of the fifth month, counting months from Nisan, which is the first month. So if Nisan is 1, if Iyar is 2, if Sivan is 3, if Sivan and then Tammuz, is the fourth month, and the fifth month is Av. Fifth month begins this Shabbos. So we'll read this verse in the Pasha, and this verse will actually list the date of that day. And one wonders why, and also one wonders why Aaron's death is even recorded in this Pasha. It's not relevant. The whole story, if we go back 4 parashas back, Chukat, and there it is. And there is, and it's the same. We're in Hor HaHar, Gvul Eretz Edom, on the border of the land of Edom, and there Hashem says to Aaron, I'm going to go through it quickly, but it's a lot of detail. Um, you're going to pass away because you're not entering the land because of the waters of the river. I think we had a chat about that a few weeks ago. And take Aaron and Elazar. Hashem says to Moshe, take him up to the mountain, remove Aaron from his priestly garments, divest him. You give those to his son Elazar, and then he's going to pass away there. And Moshe passes away there. It goes up to the mountain and with Aaron. And then he does as he was commanded, and yeah, that's it. And he passes away there. So the death is recorded and described in far more detail than this passing verse telling us that he passed away. So then the question is, why does it mention it again in their journeys? And it would seem it's almost on purpose for it to happen on or around Rosh Chodesh Av. And this portion, Mas'eh, will always be read either on Rosh Chodesh Av, as it is this year, or on the preceding Shabbos Mevorchim Av. But it'll always be linked with that month of Av and close to the date of Rosh Chodesh. What's the relevance? Why is that important? Why is it important for us to be told again about the death of Aharon? On the Yotzat of a tzaddik, there's an energy about that tzaddik. And on Rosh Chodesh Av, it's important that the energy of Aaron be in evidence. And I'm going to approach it from two angles, the one which I'll do quickly, and that is the aspect of mourning. We're currently in the period of the 3 weeks of mourning. We're mourning the destruction of the temples. The temple is a place where Aaron shone, where he was able to express himself. He was the high priest, and this is where he served. This is where he offered sacrifices. This is where he lit the menorah. This is where he lit offered the incense and so forth. That was his place. So it's kind of almost appropriate that while we mourn through the destruction of the temple, and of course that was many hundreds of years after this parasha was written, but Aaron's death should occur then, because as we mourn the temple, we're mourning the loss of Aaron at the same time, almost like it's the right setting. I saw a fascinating story, which is recorded in the name of the Gerer Rebbe, the Sfat Emet. And he tells a story of a man who made a point when he went to funerals of going barefoot. Now, of course, other than the mourners, you don't have to go barefoot. The mourners only remove their shoes after the burial, not before. But this man, in order to associate with the pain of the loss of the people whose funerals he attended, would remove his shoes and walk barefoot. So that was quite a remarkable way of kind of sharing in the pain and the loss of other people. So somehow there was he was paid back. How was he paid back? Everyone at his funeral came without wearing shoes. And how was that? Well, he was buried on Tisha B'Av, and none of us wear shoes on Tisha B'Av, at least not comfortable leather shoes. So we wear flimsy, slippers or whatever it may be. And so this man, because he was always there, mourning for others in the appropriate manner, was kind of almost paid back with that respect that everybody else was paying back that same gesture. Had Aaron's passing happened any other time during a calendar year, it would have been, on the 7th of Adar, which we happen to know is the Yotel of his brother. Yeah, Chaver Kadishas get together and they have a Suda because that's their day. But other than that, we know about it, but we don't kind of sit and mourn the loss of Moshe. But Aaron's death is at a time when the entire Jewish people are in mourning. In fact, what do we say to individual mourners? We say, may Hashem comfort you among the mourners for Zion and Jerusalem. We're all mourning for Zion and Jerusalem, more acutely so during this 3-week period. And for that reason, Aaron is kind of mourned then. And the mourning for Aaron is set against the background of the communal mourning of the entire Jewish people for the Beit HaMikdash. Number one, and number two. So it's about the timing. But there's something else, maybe on a far more kind of positive note, about Aaron's life. Of course, not only do we mourn during these 3 weeks, we also spend a lot of time pondering about the reasons for exile. And the problem, the root causes of this exile seem to point to a breakdown in interpersonal relationships. And that's sinat chinam, that Gemara says, baseless, causeless, unnecessary hatred. Aaron was the model of the opposite, of absolute, unfounded love. I don't know how to express it. Causeless love, or unwarranted, unnecessary. Well, it's not true to say it should be unnecessary. Aaron was the man we know that is the pursuer of peace, the lover of peace, and that's how he excelled. And if during these 3 weeks we want to look at the root causes of exile and we want to try and kind of heal that and then bring about redemption, then we got to take a leaf out of Aaron's book. Actually, as I'm going to show you now, there are 3 pages that I'd like to read from Aaron's life that would do well to emulate. Number 1, his relationship with his brother. Something unbelievable. There's a psalm dedicated to them. How beautiful, how pleasant it is when brothers sit together. It describes it as Shemen HaTov al Rosh, Yered al Zakan, beautiful, good oil that pours down from the head. So I kind of get lost in that metaphor because to me that's a little bit cringy, but obviously that was something that in King David's mind when he was describing this in this short, I think a 2-verse or 3-verse Shir HaMalot psalm, I forget which number, it's 120 something. He was describing the beauty of the love between them. Why is that love amazingly beautiful? Let's backtrack. Let's backtrack to the book of Breshit, where it almost seems to develop over a background of sibling rivalry. We have Cain and Abel, Isaac and Ishmael, Esav and Yitzchak, Esav and Yaakov, Yosef and his brothers, Menashe and Ephraim. But as we go through it all, there seems to be a little bit of an improvement in the relationship. So I mean, the worst that can happen is the way Cain and Abel ended up. We all know there was jealousy. Cain, older brother, sees his younger brother kind of overtake him, and that's the end. It ends in fratricide. The next major event, Yitzchak, Ishmael again. Ishmael is the older brother. Yitzchak takes him over. Ishmael is disinherited. How does it happen? How does it sort out? Doesn't sort out. Ishmael kind of realizes that he's better off staying away because he's not going to ever win. Esav and Yaakov, same. Older brother Esav, younger brother Yaakov. Yaakov kind of overtakes him, and eventually Eventually, they make up, they embrace. When we get to Joseph and his brothers, um, there is a breakdown again. Joseph is not the eldest. Joseph is the eldest of the second wife, but he's got brothers older than him, and there's Judah and there's Reuben, and they're older than him, and they all get passed up for that younger one who becomes the king and the ruler. Um, and yes, um, Yosef forgives them completely for the horrible things that they attempted to do and the things they succeeded in doing to them. There's complete. Then there's one more in the book of Breshit, sibling rivalry. That one's kind of neutral. We have Menashe and Ephraim, same story, with Yaakov crossing his hands because and putting Ephraim ahead of Menashe, even though he's a younger one. Um, we're not aware that there's any animosity between them as a result of that. It seems to go quite smoothly. And the book of Bereshit starts book of Shmot, and we find Moshe and Aharon, and it's a very similar situation. Aaron is the older brother. Aaron is passed up in favor of Moshe. Let's see if I can do this again. Seems I can. Yes. So this is Moshe speaking to Hashem at the burning bush. And he says, please, Hashem, and this is at the end of, it was a week-long discussion. And at the end of this, he's tried everything. He's tried, they won't believe me. I'm not one of them. I've grown up here in Midian. I'm far away. I can't speak well. Why would they believe me? And so forth. And eventually he says, why me? Please make someone else your agent. And who's he talking about? He's talking about Aaron. He's talking about his older brother. Well, not only is he older brother and therefore and the more charismatic one and the better speaker, but not only is he the older brother, but he's been in Egypt with him all the time. Whereas Moshe managed to escape and is living a life of relative comfort out there, tending to the sheep of his father-in-law. Aaron is with them in their suffering in Egypt. And who is the effective leader of the Jewish people? After Amram died, we know he was their father. And after Amram died, Aaron takes over the leadership. He is the heir to the position, and he's been there as the head of the exiled Jews, giving them direction, hope, comfort, and leadership. Now suddenly Moshe is going to arrive from Midian, and he's going to come in and become their leader. He says, no, that's not going to work. Aaron's going to be devastated, and I can't do that to him. So that's kind of his final objection, I think, at the end, and it results in divine wrath. And this is how Hashem answers him. Yes, there is your brother Aaron. He speaks readily. He speaks well. He doesn't get that speech impediment. Even now, he's setting out to meet you. He'll be happy to see you. Hashem says, Aaron is going to meet you when you get to Egypt, and you'll see Aaron will have come out. He'll have been foretold of your impending arrival, and he's going to greet you. And he's going to be happy to see you. And here's Rashi's words. It comes from the Gemara in Shabbat. Not as you believe he'll be angry with you because you've attained a high position. And then the Medrash and the Gemara says, and in consequence of this, Aaron was privileged to wear the ornament of the breastplate, which he wore over his heart, because he'll be glad in his heart. He'll rejoice and be glad in his heart for you, and that's why he managed to have that breastplate that is going to be worn over his heart in that way. This is amazing. It's one thing to be able to rejoice in the joy of others, but to rejoice in the joy of others at your own detriment. That's Aaron. So Aaron greets Moshe at the borders of Mitzrayim, and is genuinely happy to see him. And he's going to act as number two for the next couple of years until they get out of Egypt, and eventually he gets assigned his role of Kohen Gadol. But right through that process, he's going to be, and Moshe remains the ultimate kind of king, leader, and he's the spiritual head. Um, this is an unbelievable page we can pull out of the book of Aaron in terms of interpersonal relationships and in terms of really being able to rejoice in the simcha and the achievements of other people. Page two. Page two takes us to their respective deaths and how the Jewish people reacted. So I've put here side by side, if I can repeat this feat thrice. Yeah. The verse we had earlier on, when Aharon died, the right-hand side of the screen, the whole community knew that Aaron had breathed his last. All the house of Israel bewailed Aaron 30 days. On the left of the screen, you've got the verse at the very end of the Torah, 2 or 3 verses from the very end, and there it talks about Moshe having died, and then uh, the valley of Moab, and the Israelites bewailed Moshe in the steppes of Moab for 30 days. The period of wailing and mourning for Moshe came to an end. So, two marked differences. First of all, look at who mourned for Aaron on the right. Kol Beit Israel, the entire house of Israel, as opposed to here, they cried, Bnei Israel, Vayifku, Kol Beit Yisrael. The other marked difference is that Aaron's mourning doesn't seem to come to an end. Whereas with Moshe, it says they're the same period, 30 days, but then it came to an end. The people moved on. There was Joshua, and now we're moving on. So the era of Moshe kind of closed, whereas this appears to be open-ended. Here is Rashi on the verse. The children of Israel wept. That's Moshe. That's but regarding that, says Rashi, means the men. Regarding Aaron, because he pursued peace, made peace between a man and his fellow, between a woman and a husband, it is stated that Numbers, we had it, as I said, 3-4 weeks ago, in Chukat, the whole house of Israel wept for him, that is, the men and the women. So there's a marked difference between the levels of mourning, the depth of the mourning for Aharon. I read something amazing. It says that behind the coffin of Aharon, which I'm not quite sure how that worked because he died on Har, so there wasn't really a funeral procession, so to speak, but kind of leading the mourning were 80,000 young men, all bearing the name Aaron. Why were they given that name? Because their parents had been in irreconcilable marriages. They never would have been born. And it was Aharon, single-handedly, who was the marriage counselor and brought them back together. If you think about it, just a quick calculation, 80,000 couples. I don't know if all of them had sons that are named Aaron, but at least 80,000 of them did. So that's over a 40-year period. Just do the maths. It means like 7 or 8 marriage sessions a day, and that doesn't even allow for repeat sessions. It's gotta go in there, sort the marriage out, and move on. And somehow Aaron managed that. How do you manage that? Conventional. I'm just looking at the list of participants here to see if we have any counselors here. But traditional therapy tends to kind of dig into the past and open up the wounds and then clean it and make it work. Aaron's therapy was entirely future focused. He would approach the woman And he would say, "Oi, I saw your husband after shul. He was in no hurry to go anywhere. He was actually sitting and I think he was crying." And I said to him, "Why are you just sitting here?" He said, "I've got nowhere to go. My house is empty. There's nobody there to smile at me, to make me a cup of tea, to say a kind word. I'm in no rush to go home." He would then, meet the husband somewhere, and he would say, "I saw your wife, and she is so devastated at the fact that your relationship is broken down. She just can't believe that it broke down to that level. She just wishes that everything could fall back into place like it used to be." Um, of course, none of that was true, but it didn't matter because that brought about reconciliation. Because everyone felt warm to the other party, and it worked again. And that was Aaron. Are you allowed to do that? Yes. It clearly says that you may bend the truth for the sake of peace. And Aaron was hugely effective at doing that. And in that way, he was able to restore Shalom Bayit and other disputes uh, as they would happen in the community. People missed him because of that ability. Now, why couldn't Moshe do that? Moshe couldn't do that because Moshe was the man of absolute truth. Would describe Moshe as Moshe Emet, Torah to Emet. Moshe is true, his Torah is true. So Moshe couldn't bend the truth for the sake of peace. It's not everyone's, within everyone's makeup. Aaron was able to overlook the reality and take risks in order to restore shalom. And that's page number 2 from the book of Aaron's life. Page 3. There are certain circumstances when one is required to give another a cold shoulder. If you're aware of a person's bad behavior, immoral behavior, unethical behavior, whatever it may be, the Talmud says, not always can you be effective at giving rebuke, at changing, and if there are circumstances where it's not going to help, then you should actually kind of distance yourself away from them, avoid them, and not try and engage with them and interact with them. That will be the letter of the law. Aaron was known to do the opposite. If he saw somebody who did not behave in the appropriate manner, he would treat them, greet them with warmth, with passion. He would embrace them, invite them for Shabbos, take their number and send them a daily WhatsApp. He kind of embraced them. And when that individual was about to, you know, go back to his previous behavior, um, he would say to himself, "How can I do this? I mean, Aaron's so nice to me. Can you imagine if he opens up the what is it, the Sinai Desert Times, and he sees that I was arrested for burglary overnight? You know, I'm so embarrassed. Not not scared to get caught. I mean, I've done it a lot of times. I'm embarrassed that Aaron should find out that I've got this secret life that at night I go, sneaking into people's tents and taking out their valuables. That I, commit acts of immorality, whatever the case may have been. And so by extending that embrace to everybody, um, Aaron actually got people to think about themselves and their behavior, and improve. So here we have page 3 of the book of our life. So these are the leaves from his book that we got to extract and apply, particularly around his yahrzeit, which is kind of smack in the middle, just before the 9 days begin. And during the period of the 3 weeks of mourning, when we want to improve interpersonal relationship, as Hillel said in Pirkei Avot, Aaron must be a model of one who loves peace and pursues peace. Okay,